Chapter 26, 29 lecture. We are going to be talking about online, group, and business contexts and as it relates to public speaking. So these chapters are really important for your, out of school life, your professional life. If you go into like a business, any sort of workforce where you're going to have to give speeches, give pitches, things like that. Yeah. All right, so preparing online presentations. There's four aspects to prepare online presentations. First, apply your knowledge of face-to-face speaking. Second, plan for the unique demands of online delivery. 3, plan for the delivery mode. And 4, choose a format. So for the first point, apply your knowledge of face-to-face speaking. Online presentations have the same basic needs as in-person presentations. So the way that you will prepare for an in-person presentation is similar to an online presentation, vice versa. Online definitely has some extra steps with, what we will be talking about after this point. But for basic needs, how to construct a presentation is going to be the same. You're still going to be selecting one of the 3 general purposes, so to inform, to persuade, or to entertain. I had a little bit of a brain fart there. You'll still be selecting from one of those 3 general purposes. That does not change when you give an online speech, as I'm sure all of you know since you've been giving speeches online. Then you will still need the audience analysis, structure, and supporting materials, so you will want to know who you are giving the speech to. For this class, you're giving the speech to me. I don't really share this with anyone in the class except for your peer for peer evaluation, but you're really just giving it to me. For like a business, if you were in sales or marketing, you're going to have to know your client. So research a little bit about them, do some audience analysis on them. You also need structure, so you're still going to want the introduction, the thesis, the preview, the 3 main points, supporting material, all of that. And then lastly, supporting materials, you're still going to want that sort of evidence and material to help you make your claim valid. And then lastly, you will need to continually engage with your audience. In in-person speaking, this is easy because you can see their faces, you can point at people, you can ask a question. However, online it's a little bit different, especially if you're giving an asynchronous one. You'll still have to continually engage with your audience. The way I do this is give you guys, a prompt to think about something, or I give you an activity to think about later, or I point out to you guys, I try to talk to you guys through the screen as much as possible, try to be as engaging as possible. 2, plan for the unique demands of online deliveries. So this is where online public speaking and giving presentations differs from in-person. You're going to have to be charismatic. This is going to be like almost overly charismatic because in person you can show your charisma through like your body language more. You can, people might know you from personal connections. However, online you're going to have to give your charisma, which is like what the textbook calls it. It's electronic charisma, I guess. A little bit dated of a statement, I feel, but it's fine. You're going to have to be more, It's really easy to be monotone, but you're going to want to bring up that charisma, really be engaging. You're going to also make sure your positioning and background are optimal, so you're going to want to be in the middle of the screen. I should probably be like this, but I'm more like this. That's, I could try to move this back, but I don't have much space. And your background on like Zoom and Google Meet, I know you can do like a little picture for a background. If not, you're going to want to make sure that your background is as least distracting as possible. Once again, I don't have very many options with my background. I know I have some distracting stuff, but I don't think that they're too much. But trying to keep your background as optimal as possible. No people moving in the background, no TV going on in the background, stuff like that. And then focus on vocal variety. Super easy, like I said, to be monotone. You're going to want to really focus on, like, emphasizing words and bringing it up and bringing it down. Really give some vocal variety. Have effective visual aids. This will help people further understand you through the screen. It's better to have some sort of visual aid going on in the background. For you guys, I have this lovely presentation right here as my visual aid. It's one thing to lecture at you guys. I wouldn't want to listen to just somebody talking for a long time. So having these slides helps a lot because you guys can read and follow along with what I'm saying. And then lastly, know and practice with your equipment. So know what equipment you are using. I use this laptop and I use the Loom app. We all have to use D2L, and I also use YouTube for my lectures. So make sure you know what your equipment is and that you're comfortable with it and that you practice so that you aren't in the middle of doing your speech and something goes wrong. And then 3, plan the delivery mode. There's 2 different kinds for online presentations. You can either do a real-time presentation or a recorded presentation. A real-time presentation would be like a Zoom meeting, a Google Meet meeting, things like that. This allows for adaptation based on audience input. You can see your audience's face, or maybe they make a little comment, and you can adapt based on that. You can also answer questions as they come in. Sorry, my dog just... So yeah, you can answer questions as they come in, and then adapt based on that as well. And then real-time presentations, the biggest con to it is that it's not really good for different time zones / availability. If you work in a business that has people that are across the sea or even across the United States, it's not really optimal to have a real-time presentation because when you are at 3 p.m. giving your speech, it could be like 2 p.m. or 2 a.m. where they are and they're supposed to be asleep. And also, a lot of people, especially when it's online, they don't prioritize the online meetings, so their availability might not be the same as yours. So that's when real-time presentations get a little bit tricky. And then you can do a recorded presentation. That is what I do for this class. That is what you guys do for this class. The best part about a recorded presentation is, one, that you can restart. That's always really helpful. And it can be watched at any time. It's very convenient. You can sit down and do it at any time. You can do it ahead of time even, or it can be watched by others at any time. However, it is a little bit more difficult because you have to work harder to make it interesting. I try to make these lectures as interesting and as short as possible because I know nobody wants to sit down and listen to somebody talk, especially when it's on their own time, when on y'all's own time. So you gotta try really hard to make it interesting so people actually watch. And then lastly, choose a format. So you can choose a video, podcast or vodcast, which is a video podcast, or webinar. These 3 types, I have different ways that you can do this. So like a video, if you want to take a video, you can do it with your smartphone, your webcam on your computer. You can do it on YouTube. You can do it on PowerPoint. The Microsoft Office PowerPoint has a feature where you can do videos. You can use Loom as well, which is not really helpful for you guys because I don't want you guys sitting down when you do your presentations. It's better to stand up so I can grade your body language as well. But you can use Loom. And then podcasts and vodcasts, you can do that on iTunes, Google Play Music, YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, anywhere you can do that. Webinars are real-time meetings, so this would be Zoom and Google Meet, that's what I would suggest for a real-time meeting. So, communicating in groups. I'm not going to delve too much into how to be in a group. I could go on about that for a long time, but we will try to keep it more public speaking wise. So when you're in a group, focus on your goal. When you come together, make a goal, whether that's to get an A on an assignment, whether to get a certain amount of people to interact with your product, something like that. Just don't set it and forget it. Continually bring up that goal at each meeting and talk about it. Have we made any progress on this goal? What are we going to do further to progress with this goal? And then also when you are at meetings, before the meeting, set an agenda. You're going to want different talking points, maybe even how long you want to talk about those talking points so you actually get stuff done. It's difficult to come together and then try to think of stuff, so think of stuff ahead of time and have an agenda. And then resist groupthink. So what is groupthink? Groupthink is when, there is a majority thought, idea, value that everyone falls in and just agrees with because they don't want to be ousted from the group. So you need to resist groupthink. Yes, we all want to fit in. We don't want to be the biggest outlier of the group. But when, let's say the leader of the group says, I want to do a speech about frogs. And you're like, it's not really a great persuasive speech topic, and you see other people around you saying, okay, because they don't want to, be that one person. You can be respectful and do it. You can be like, I actually don't think that's a great idea. And if you have a partner or a group member that says, I don't think that's a great idea, then be open-minded. Hear them out. Talk about it. We want to talk about different alternatives. We don't want to be stuck in that either-or fallacy that we talked about last lecture, where you think you have only two alternatives, but there's many more. So resist that groupthink. And then make disagreements about issues, not members. So if you disagree about something, make it about that issue. Do not attack your members, because that is just going to make the team fall apart. It's hard to come back from that, especially with like a work group, because you guys aren't like friends. Usually you aren't friends, classmates, you aren't like besties unless you are in a class with your bestie. But more often than not, you don't have that extreme emotional connection where you can just repatch it. So once you have that sort of disagreement with like a work person, it's hard to kind of patch that up fully. So make sure you make it about the issue. So we want to do productive conflict. So that is having conflict with progressing in mind, getting to an end goal. We're not just compromising on stuff. We are trying to figure out what is the best alternative by having productive conflict. Also, debate is healthy. If you're in your group and, people are having disagreements and stuff, it is healthy to have that. So you don't want to just shut it down and just agree on something or agree with something. You want to debate. It's one thing to debate and be good. It's one thing to be like, kind of a meanie head about it. So we are, playing devil's advocate. We're being respectful. We're being open-minded. We're just not being mean and rude. We shouldn't be doing that. And then plan on roles. So when you get into a group, you're going to want to assign each other roles. Think of what roles that you need. Think about the, strengths of the members and pick roles. So there's 3 kinds of roles that we see in groups. One is task roles. That is hands-on roles and relates to the group's progress. So these are the things that get tasks done. So like someone who runs meetings, someone who sets the agenda, someone who does the research, someone who writes down things like that. Things that you are actually physically doing. And then there's social roles. This facilitates group interaction and keeps the vibe good. I know that's a very Gen Z thing, but we're keeping the vibe good. A social role is someone who is, the moderator for arguments. There's someone who, if someone's getting really, really upset, someone in a social role can go over with them and be like, calm them down a little bit. We're keeping the stuff going, keep them vibe good. And then last is the anti-group roles. We want to avoid these roles. Do not give someone this kind of role. Just that when we assign roles, that as task roles and social roles, we're not assigning anti-group roles. Anti-group roles is focus on individual needs rather than the group. So a person who's focusing on what they need out of the group rather than what the group needs from them. So if they really need, I don't know, if they're in a group with like their crush and they want to get in with their crush a little bit and they're, chatting them up a lot rather than working with the group to actually work on the assignment, that's kind of an anti-group role. This is bad. Do not be this person. Do not be an anti-group person. We are wanting to progress. When we're in a group, we are wanting to progress together. Plan on taking multiple roles. You won't just have, like researcher or vibe person. I don't know. Plan on taking multiple roles because more often than not, you will be taking multiple roles. And then make sure you actually discuss the roles. Think about what you need out of the group. Think about who can do what best and actually talk about it as a group and assign. Come to a conclusion. So delivering group presentations. There's 3 important things to remember when you're delivering group presentations. 1, do everything you would normally, but together. So come up with the topic, come up with the thesis, the purpose, the outline, the presentation slides. Do it all together. Of course, you don't have to, get everyone's opinion on every little thing, but go, ask, can I make the presentation yellow? Can I, put this picture in there? Just ask about a good guideline and go with that, but do it together. 2, establish roles. Like I said, consider the strengths of your members. If there is someone who's really good at public speaking, maybe have them give the bulk of the speech part. If there's someone who's really good at writing and reading, researching, give them the research part. If there's someone who's very creative, have them do the presentation, so on and so forth. And then third of all, you do this as an individual, you do this as a group. Practice, practice, practice. We are wanting to practice, whether you're giving your own speech or a speech with a group presentation, you are practicing at least 6 times. So make sure you practice. So business and professional presentations. You're going to want to know the degree of formality. Where you work, is it business casual? Is it business professional? The clients that you're pitching to or talking to, are they business casual? Are they business professional? What kind of titles are you using? Are you using first names? Stuff like that. 2, know your stuff. If you're giving a speech on, statistics that has to do with something in your marketing firm, know what you're talking about. If you're giving a pitch to a client, know who they are. Make sure you really, really research and get to know this material really well because you don't want to look like an idiot. You don't want to get up in front of your own personal work team and other work teams and, not look your best because you thought you could wing it. And then 3, it's important to know what reports and proposals are, their types of business presentations, and it is, if you go into any sort of business, it is what you're most often going to give speeches on if that's the only thing you give your speeches on. So a report is, the objective of a report is to describe the facts related to the topic. So you're just objectively describing facts. Just, topic, here's statistics, that's it. You can involve recommendations. It's not unusual to involve recommendations, but sometimes you just want to keep it just purely objective and statistical, just the numbers. It shows the difference in an informative or a persuasive report, and same thing as a speech. An informative report or an informative speech, we are just giving the facts. We're not putting our opinion in, we're just giving the facts. Now for persuasive speech or persuasive report, you are giving your opinions on it. You are giving the facts and then the opinions that you have on it, or the recommendations. Many reports include a preview of reasons for the report, so that's like the preview of your speech. A presentation of findings. If you do any sort of research, that would be the methods. So you say, this is what I found, this is how I found it. It would also include conclusions drawn from the evidence. So you give your findings, you say how you got your findings, and then you give the reasons behind the findings. What you can, what the findings kind of mean, what you interpret from them. And then lastly, if applicable, if you're doing a persuasive report rather than an informative report, you would give recommendations based on the evidence. And then for proposals recommend a product, procedure, or policy to a client or business. So you are proposing something. You are pitching something. It often incorporates or responds to information from reports. So let's say you are given a report. Now you have to give a proposal based on that report. So you take the information and respond to the stuff that's in that. To do a proposal, you would follow these steps. Introduce the issue and state the problem. So kind of give a story into why there's a problem and then state exactly what the problem is. 2, describe the method of investigation and the facts learned. So how did you go into figuring out the facts and what facts did you find? 3, give an explanation for findings. So what did you find? How do you interpret those findings? What did they mean in response to that problem? Offer recommendations, so that would include like timelines, budgets, things like that. And then lastly, end with a call to action. So you want them to actually take action. This is a lot like the motivated sequence that we talked about in the last one, the Monroe's motivated sequence. Last one is in last lecture. And yeah, that is our lecture for today. If you have any questions, please let me know.